What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Yeah, in this video, I told you I had some videos that are going to shake up the boxing community. They're not going to necessarily be popular opinion, but at the end of the day, this is my channel and they're my opinions. And I don't just try to come on my channel and just blabber. I really try to base it on fact and what I see and give you as much of a non-biased opinion as possible. I have a lot of boxing channels that I subscribe to, and just I'm a member of different boxing communities and websites that I frequent and stuff. And one of the things that I see is some of the users just put the most asinine comments, and it's usually, I can read these comments and tell who's a hardcore boxing fan and who's more of a surface area fan, because you got hardcore boxing fans who really just appreciate the sport, and they're going to tend to be usually a little less judgmental and biased and more realistic. And then you got people who are fans, not necessarily of the sport, but maybe a particular fighter, like, oh, I love Pacquiao, or I'm a Amir Khan fan, or whatever the person, whoever, Floyd Mayweather, whoever it is. And then you also have people who are just they're tribalist, and they are fans of people who share the same race or creed as them. A lot of times those are good things, you know what I mean, support your race, that's all fine and dandy, but you got to still be realistic. Just because you're Pakistani, that doesn't mean you can't admit to any of Amir Khan's flaws. Because you're black, that doesn't mean that you can't notice that Zab Judah has certain like vulnerabilities and loses focus and doesn't know how to adapt. You know what I mean? These are factual things that you could tell about a fighter, and it doesn't matter. You could, like I said, you couldn't be rooting for whoever you want, but at the end of the day, you got to be realistic. So that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video. Some of the hypocrisies that I see in the boxing community based on the comments people post and whatnot. And most recently, heavy in the boxing community, a lot of people are talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr., who is he going to fight next, and it looks like there's two main candidates that are in the spotlight, and that's Robert the Ghost Guerrero and Canelo Alvarez. And some of the stuff I'm reading is just ridiculous because it's hypocritical. People are saying that, oh, Mayweather's cherry picking again. If he picks Robert Guerrero, he's picking it because it's the lower risk and he's afraid of Canelo and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to break that down a little bit. For some of you guys that don't realize, Canelo Alvarez is he's a big dude. He's a big boy. He's young, he's hungry, he's strong. He fights at 154 pounds. And Mayweather, and if you disagree with this, you probably don't know much about boxing. Mayweather is not a full-fledged 154 pounder. Not making excuses. I'm not saying that, physical strength or size doesn't always tell the tale in the sport of boxing, especially when you're a master boxer technician like Mayweather. But my point being is, aside from the fact that you want to see Canelo, you can't honestly argue and say Canelo deserves a shot at Mayweather in that big payday more than Robert Guerrero. Because if you look at their pedigrees, Robert Guerrero, he's moved up weight classes plenty of times. He's been calling Mayweather out. He's fighting people in his own division. And actually, his wife had cancer, so he went up in weight after a layoff. And he fought a avoided fighter in the 147-pound bracket from overseas, Ayadin, and he beat him. And then he came back and he beat Andre Berto. And these are two fights that people thought Robert Guerrero didn't have a chance. He definitely has a chin and he's tough. So because a lot of people, usually this is coming from people who don't like Mayweather for whatever reason or not. They're saying Mayweather's ducking and he's going to pick Robert Guerrero. But realistically, Robert Guerrero deserves a fight with Mayweather more than Canelo does. And I'm going to explain to you why. Again, Robert Guerrero is fighting people in his own division, whereas Canelo fights a lot of welterweights and he fights at 154 pounds. He most recently fought Josecito Lopez, who normally fights at a 140-pound division. Went up one time to fight Victor Ortiz, had a shocking upset at 147, and in the same year he went up another weight class to fight Canelo, and we all seen what happened in that particular fight with Josecito. So this is the hypocritical part. You're saying Floyd is cherry picking because if he picks Robert Guerrero, he's cherry picking because he's avoiding Canelo, yet Canelo's not fighting anybody in his own division. Canelo's not fighting K9 Bundridge. Hell, I'd like to see Canelo even fight Carlos Molina, Austin Trout. I mean, that's the number one guy he should be facing. Austin Trout went into Miguel Cotto's backyard, his second home, New York, Madison Square Garden, and beat him. And he had to deal with the hostile crowd. He was the underdog, I believe, in that particular fight. And Austin Trout kept his undefeated record and beat Miguel Cotto in Miguel Cotto's backyard. So Canelo should be fighting someone like that. And the only argument that I've ever heard is the Canelo curse. And Canelo was supposed to fight Paul Williams, and he had a tragic accident. He was supposed to fight James Kirkland, and James Kirkland pulled out. He was supposed to fight Victor Ortiz, and he got his jaw broke. That's fine and dandy, but if you still look at it, that's still matchmaking, because Paul Williams, and it's very most unfortunate what happened to him, and I was a huge Paul Williams fan, still am, and he hasn't looked, ever since the Sergio Martinez second rematch where he got knocked out, he has not looked like the Punisher Paul Williams. He didn't look like the fighter that was highly avoided. He had a controversial win with Laura and just different stuff. So, of course, they're going to pick a fight like that. Why don't they pick someone like, again, Carlos Molina, who fought James Kirkland and would have won if he wasn't DQ'd from that fight? So, again, that's my question. How is it Mayweather, because you don't like him, he's cherry picking and he's avoiding Canelo if he picks Robert Guerrero. However, Canelo's not fighting anybody in his own division. So that doesn't make sense to me. Same thing with Sergio Martinez. People are like, he's avoiding Sergio Martinez, who's also bigger than Floyd Mayweather. But Sergio Martinez is not fighting Gennady Golovkin, who's calling him out, and they fight in the same division. So he's willing to drop down and cut weight to fight Mayweather or Pacquiao, who are both smaller than him. So that's my whole point is, when it happens to the fighter that you prefer or the fighter you like, it's acceptable. However, when another fighter that you dislike does it, then they're cherry picking and they're ducking. And again, that's what I don't understand about the sport of boxing, and it doesn't make sense. It's asinine, because if you're going to be a critic, you should have the same rule, and it should be equal for everyone. It shouldn't just apply to Floyd Mayweather. And if anything, Floyd Mayweather has been in the sport longer than most of the other people, like Canelo. He's been in the sport longer than Sergio Martinez. He's been a factor in the sport, and that kind of thing. So if anyone's worked his way up, he's worked his way up. So if anyone has the power to be their own boss and make certain decisions, shouldn't it be someone like him who has an impressive resume, who's been dominating in the sport, as opposed to Canelo, who hasn't really faced a legitimate top 5 154-pounder in his own division? So that's my point. Again, some of you guys aren't going to agree with me, but I'd like to see Robert Guerrero and Mayweather. I'd like to see Canelo and Mayweather. But in terms of who's earned it, Robert Guerrero, in my opinion, has earned that shot more, because he's at least fighting people in his own division, and his last fight was impressive. To me, for him to beat Andre Berto, Robert Guerrero beating Andre Berto, who is a speedster, has power, was coming off a layoff, but to me that's more impressive than Canelo beating someone who normally fights out of 140 pounds, which is Josecito Lopez. So that's my take on it. Like I said, I don't understand the hypocrisy. When Mayweather does it, it's ducking or it's cherry picking. However, Sergio Martinez is not fighting Gennady Golovkin. Canelo doesn't look like he has plans to fight Laura Matriosin or anybody else in his own weight division, but he should be able to just cut the line and automatically get the huge payday and fight Mayweather. I don't really see what he's done to earn that spot. Not saying Canelo doesn't have skill or he's not a good fighter, but in all actuality, what has he done? Who has he beaten to earn that mega payday? And at the end of the day, Robert Guerrero, at least he's the WBC interim champion. He has that belt, and he's beating people in his own division, whereas Canelo has a belt, and I believe he got that belt from Matthew Hatton, who is a welterweight and much smaller, and it's Matthew Hatton. Matthew Hatton's not even as good as Ricky Hatton. So that's just my stance on the whole subject. Like I said, I would like to see all the fights, but there's plenty of fights that can be made. Again, I just need to see Canelo face somebody who is in his division. You know what I mean? But I think they might go with Canelo versus Miguel Cotto. And if they go that route, I mean, that makes me lose respect for Canelo or his management team or somebody, because why would you fight Miguel Cotto off of a loss, two back-to-back losses, one to Mayweather, one to Austin Trout, yet you're not even going to consider fighting Austin Trout or somebody else like with a belt like K9 Bundridge? It seems like you would want to unify the belts, and that's just my opinion. But anyway, some of you guys need to be a little less hypocritical and analyze what you say and be a little bit more realistic. So let me know who deserves a fight with Mayweather. Why do you think Canelo deserves a fight with Mayweather over Robert Guerrero? Vice versa. Again, I think ultimately what happens is people are fans of certain fighters or they dislike other fighters. Therefore, you want to see the fighters you dislike automatically pitted against the person you feel is the most viable threat to beating them. So Floyd Mayweather, they want to see him fight people that are naturally bigger than him, like Sergio Martinez or someone like a Canelo, because you want him to lose. Same thing with like a Nonito Donaire. You want to see him fight Rigondeaux, or you want to see him fight Abner Mares. These are all great fights, yes, but the reason you want to see him fight is because you feel these people have what it takes to beat him. You know what I mean? And that's the way the boxing world works. Especially if there's a fighter that you dislike, a lot of you guys will immediately want to see them fight the most I don't know, the hardest challenge, or whoever you feel is the biggest threat to beating him, because you want them to lose. Adrian Broner gets it a lot. A lot of people dislike Adrian Broner. The kid's talented. You can't take anything away from him. He's talented. So they want to see him fight. He just moved to 135, had a spectacular win against Antonio DeMarco, and people are already talking about him moving up to 140, and he's a pussy because he's not going up to 147 to fight Robert Guerrero. They want to see him fight Brandon Rios at 140. He just got into a new division, and y'all already want him to move up to another division, or they want to see him fight Gamboa. Again, like I said, when people want a fighter to lose, they want them to fight whoever they feel has the potential to beat them, despite if that person has earned a shot or not. Because if you look at Adrian Broner in that situation, Adrian Broner is becoming a star in the sport. HBO looks like they love him. I'm seeing a lot more interviews, and he's getting a lot more press. I've seen him on World Star a couple times. He had some impressive knockouts and different things like that. So what has Gamboa done to deserve a fight with Adrian Broner? Despite the fact that you feel he could possibly beat Adrian Broner, what has he done career-wise? He had a belt, and then he gave it up from not fighting. He didn't fight Brandon Rios. He pulled out of that fight. He took a 15-month layoff, and then he came back and fought on the Pacquiao Marquez 4 undercard, and he didn't look good in that fight. He looked like he had the same stamina issues, and yet you guys are saying, oh, he needs to fight Broner. I mean, do you honestly feel like a rising star like Broner, he's earned a shot? Usually, I feel like people, like, ideally, if two fighters are looking good and looking sharp, then that's when you pit them against each other. Like Adrian Broner, he was beating the guys in front of him, Escobedo, Eloy Perez, etc. Antonio DeMarco, he was fighting Molina, beat him in 55 seconds, and then they fought. That's an ideal situation. Two fighters who look good in their past 2 or 3 fights, and now they're meeting each other. But again, I just don't understand the hypocrisy. Some of you guys want to see all these fantasy matchups, and I really feel it's because you feel these people pose the biggest threat to them. So you want to see Broner or Mayweather fight people who are in higher weight classes because you feel they have what it takes to beat him, or they'll finally give him that zero. So that's just it. I've talked long enough. So let me know what you guys think. As always, subscribe, comment, and or hate. And until next video, it's Ego signing off.